Xiaomi just dropped this 15T Pro and it's bringing flagship level features for a mid-range price because you get a 144Hz OLED display, Leica engineered cameras with 5x optical zoom and 90 watts of wired charging. But the 15T Pro has one major problem. Up front, you get a 6.83-inch OLED display with 3200 nits of peak brightness on the 144Hz panel, so that makes this bleeding edge right at the top in terms of its clarity, resolution, and what it can offer in terms of refresh rate. And you also get a 90Hz screen to body ratio, so those borders are very, very thin. But when you're using this to, say, for example, scroll online, you're going to get rich, clear text. No blur or anything here in any way, but this will really shine, and the OLED panel will really shine when you come to watch content. You get rich, dynamic colors, good contrast, and those blacks look inky, squiddy, nice. So in terms of watching content in here, you can get a super fun experience. One thing to note though, in terms of the display though, is relating to the fingerprint sensor. That is optical, not ultrasonic. So it's reliable, but not as fast and as intuitive as it would be if it was ultrasonic, which is just one downside. On the horsepower side, well, guess what? It's powered by the 9400 Plus, which is a MediaTek chip, which actually competes with the Snapdragon 8 Elite. So it's right up there in terms of CPU, it actually beats it in some GPU tasks. And actually, when you're using this phone on the daily, for example, things like gaming and Call of Duty Mobile, you'll even hit 100 frames per second when in boost mode. So it's buttery smooth graphically, I would say, and in terms of response rate and the experience as a whole in its totality, it's actually probably one of the best phones we've ever used in terms of being able to game on this phone, and it runs very, very well, super smooth. Now, in terms of sound output, you get stereo speakers, one at the top, one at the bottom. Now, they're not rich in terms of bass and quality, but they're not tinny either. They do a decent enough job.
You think you're in control of this? You're not.
And then when you're looking at things like benchmarks and 3D Mark's lifestyle extreme testing, you get some pretty interesting results. Effectively, what you have here is a chipset that will perform really well and will actually meet example things like the 8 Elite that we mentioned, but it will throttle under heavy load. So if you're pushing this on games like Call of Duty Mobile, Call of Duty Warzone, and Genshin Impact, you might see some throttling at the top end, but that's to be expected, how these chips tend to perform. But on the other side of things, when the testing itself, you do see battery usage drop by 10% and heat does go up by double digits. Now, those may be scary numbers, but this is an extreme test, and day-to-day wise, you're not ever going to see those in the real world. On the software side, this runs Android 15 and HyperOS 2.0, which is really weird because pretty much everything coming out now flagship levelly, like the S25 FE, for example, is getting Android 16. So I thought you'd get Android 16 on here and HyperOS 3. Now, updates are promised, but with no definitive timescale, anything around October onwards. So check that out if you do buy the phone. Some things to note though, in terms of actually using the phone itself, it runs very well. Super smooth animations, no drop frame rates, and everything is excellent. However, one thing that is a theme with Xiaomi, Redmi, and Poco phones is bloatware. We actually put this into a preloaded folder to give you an idea as to all the apps that are preloaded on here that chances are a lot of people won't use, maybe one or two they will use. And that unfortunately is one of the downsides of the Xiaomi 15T Pro. And on the AI front, you actually get quite a lot of options. If you go into the gallery and go to edit a photo of any sort, you get tons of options. Here's just an example of, for example, object eraser, but you also have the option of adding in sky, reducing reflections, adding HD clarity, boosting the quality of an image with its lower quality and boosting it up. So AI-wise, it's super rich in terms of what it can offer and has tons and tons of detail. And the object eraser worked very well. So HyperOS 2.0 on here is great, but it's a shame it's not 3. The 15T Pro has an incredible camera system. Let's give you the bit of the exciting / boring techie bit. You get a 50 megapixel main lens, a 50 megapixel 5x telephoto with OIS, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. And the output is stellar. It is really, really impressive. Let's start by breaking down the wide. So photos captured with a vibrant profile. For context, consistently sharp and well balanced. Colors are vibrant and detailed, while the shadows are rendered with pleasing balance. Then the video, 8K 30 is the max you can get here, or 4K 120 is another option as well. And those aren't often seen on these types of phones at this price point. Usually that's reserved for the £1,000 phones. And then nighttime photos are equally impressive, with the colors being nicely balanced and doesn't look overly bright. So those darker areas are dark and they look really, really good. No fake brightness. So that main output from the main lens is very, very impressive. Moving on to telephoto, again, retains a lot of what we liked of the main lens. Really good quality, punchy, tons of detail, and images aren't overly processed, even if you go up the zoom lenses. I think when you get to 30x though, it does look slightly cartoony, maybe, but still does a good job, and a lot of AI happening here as well. And then the ultra wide is decent, but does add quite a bit of softness, especially in nighttime photography. And then the social media aspect, if you're using this to take photos on the phone and then upload it, the quality retains. But if you take it through the app, for example, like Instagram, you do lose some of that punchiness and clarity in the image. It almost looks slightly flatter. So factor that in. If you're taking the photos for social media, take it out of camera, upload it. Best option. So before we give you our final thoughts on the 15T Pro, a couple of things we wanted to touch on. Charging wise, 90 watts of wired charging, 5500 milliamp hour battery, and you also get 50 watts of wireless charging as well, which is absolutely nuts. And then the design and build, it's an aluminium frame with a glass back, fiberglass back on the rear as well. So this is built like a premium phone and works really, really well and feels really expensive. No different than, for example, like an S25 Ultra or an S25 FE. It's that premium level phone. So what are our final thoughts on the 15T Pro? Well, 12 gig 256 variant costs you around $649 here in the UK, and that is really, really good value for money. But there are a few downsides. The ultra wide being one, not particularly great, but the other two lenses more than make up for it. And then the other conditions that I would say in terms of things to look out for is there can be some throttling and in the CPU and the GPU when it comes to heavy tasks. And of course, there's a lot of bloatware. But on the plus side, there are tons of really great things here. For example, the main camera lenses, the performance, the display, all works very, very well. But to start this video, we mentioned the one big problem, and that is the release of the 17 series, which came 2 days after this was announced and completely overshadowed it in almost every way, because the Pro models get you an external secondary display on the back of the phone, better cameras, faster CPU, better build quality, better durability, better displays, better every single component. So it does make you wonder why they waited so long to release this phone. And then you've got to ask yourself the question, if you wanted to buy a 15T Pro, do you wait 3 months and get a 17 series phone? Or do you just go ahead and think, I'll save the extra £250 and buy a 15T Pro? Let us know in the comment section below your thoughts on that exact question. Would you wait for the 17 series or would you buy the 15T Pro? Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, as always, we out.